Welcome to the Above the Line podcast. I'm Scott.
And I'm Charles. Thanks for joining us today. We're pretty excited.
Ooh, episode number 2.
Whoosh, who would have known?
We overcame the first one. It wasn't terrible.
Well,
Half
please
decent.
feedback.
Well, I don't know,
Tell
feedback,
us
yeah.
how good or bad. Message us. We've got an Instagram page, Above the Line _ podcast on Instagram. We'd love a follow.
Yeah,
Little
yeah.
plug.
And yeah, feedback, ideas.
Yeah, totally. What you liked, what you didn't like, questions. We might have a question and answers at some point, you know. So anyway, straight into it. So one of the things that we're reflecting on the first episode was that we talked a lot about above the line, and above the line is obviously where we want to be, but we didn't really touch on below. Apologies, my words. Below the line.
Yeah,
Below the lines where we don't want to be. So we'll roughly touch on that. Not much point in focusing too much on that because just be above.
I think we came in pretty hot.
We did.
And sort of bent towards one side because we did want to ignore the other side because we choosing to live above the line.
Totally.
But
It's a reality.
for context and what does below the line look like, it's probably, you know, worth sharing a bit of information around that.
Totally.
So again, we can identify, build some self-awareness to be like, ooh, I might be living on the opposite of the line that Charles and Scott's podcast name is.
What am I going to do? Totally. And I guess the reality as well, like being really honest with you, is both Scott and I are not always above the line.
This is true.
From literally 1 minute to the next, we could be above the line to then below the line. It's a moment by moment thing, and I think we touched on that quite a bit in episode 1. But yeah, so Scott, what do you think? For you, what does the opposite of above the line look like for you? What does below the line look like for you?
Yeah, I think, look, it's a whole different thing, but I guess just to give some context around what that looks like, you know, you dropped Orbed
Yes.
in the first episode, which the first OAR is ownership, accountability and responsibility.
Yeah.
So the below the line is bed, which is, you know, blaming, excuses and denial. So that's what happens below the line. And so, yeah, I think, you know, taking that into account, it's that victim mindset. It's that things are happening to me and I've got no control and what's going to happen. And partly some of that could be accurate, but you can always control yourself, your emotion, your outlook, your perspective around things. And so above the line, I guess an example, you know, I went through a bit of a business challenge that was pretty monumental in my career. And that felt like it pushed me below the line and held me there.
Interesting.
And
What did that space look like for you, like at that point in time?
Yeah, it was pretty shitty. But that was, you know, why me? Why did this have to happen to me? Like everyone, like I've got no control in the situation. I'm at the mercy of whatever circumstances is coming at me. And that wasn't helping. And like the compounding that we talked about, you can compound the other way too.
Totally.
So you can make some positive steps and build that, but you can also be making some negative steps and just going deep, darker. What did you call it? A delirium or something?
Doldrum.
Yeah. So I call it a black hole.
There we go.
So you just go further into the black hole, or for Charles Bigwood, the abyss.
Yeah, that's a nice word.
So yeah, I think that's when you just sort of a bit, and I think one thing that helped me get out of that particular situation, which I'm sure will come out more and more as we go about and start running out of content, and I have to. No, jokes. We're taking ownership, team.
We must cry.
I wonder what, tears.
Tears will come one day.
One day. Oh, wow. Getting vulnerable. All right.
Absolutely.
One thing was like, and again, to sum this up, we talked about the making it simple. Another thing. When something happens, it's either chaos or opportunity. So you can choose to see it as chaos or you can see it as an opportunity. And it's sometimes really hard to find the opportunity in it. But ultimately, when I consciously looked for that opportunity in that situation, which was really shitty, that started getting me closer to the line and then pushing through above the line.
That's awesome. And I think that mindset to be able to recognize opportunity versus chaos is the ability to grow from any circumstance. So that can be, well, X and Y has just happened. I've been given a no from a client, or I've been, or a relationship, or a friend, or we'll look inward and be like, well, actually, how did I react? What values was I living by in that moment? Were they values that I want to live by in the future? Probably not. If it was a bad, a bad spot. So, well, how can I change that? How can I be better the next time this happens? There's now above the line thinking and a growth mindset for next outcomes.
100%. And I think as well, what I just wrote down? Yeah, it's that belief.
Yes.
So like, it could just be real bad and like you're just almost delusional and trying to look at it like an opportunity. But that belief and seeing it like an opportunity is way better than like, oh, this is like chaos and I've got no control. So it's just like the belief that you have that there is opportunity out there, no matter what's happening, is way more positive and exciting than the opposite.
And then imagine when an opportunity is actually like a really good opportunity. You're not trying to make good out of bad. You're actually making good out of good. Imagine the compound of that. Like, it's that
reticular activating system.
That's the one.
RAS.
Yes, I always get
neurological.
That's the one. Neuroscience. Here we go. But the more you focus on something, the more things come to you in that. So if you buy a brown car, you're going to see a lot more brown cars on the road. It's just the same. If you start seeing opportunity in things, you are going to see more opportunities out of good things, out of bad things. It's crazy, totally crazy. And the cool thing is, it's not woofy, kind of thing. It is literally how our brains work. Physically work. That's how they're wired. It just happens. So I guess lean into. It's not woofy. It's real.
Yeah, I mean it's from a physical point of view.
Here we go. Science. So when you say science and stuff,
I got you, man. But also, just a quick point.
You go. Yes.
Like so cool, and I think I just had a moment. Like we were literally talking about this on the car drive home from the Easter weekend.
You said brown car.
Yeah,
I just used brown car,
and it's like, this is why we do it, because again, that's sort of one of the conversations that we just had. You, Hannah, and myself in the car, and it's like that's just
it's day-to-day life, literally life. Yeah, that's awesome. I would just wanted to touch on the word control that you'd mentioned a few times, and I think that's something really cool to touch on, because I think from childhood, I know from me, and I think ultimately probably everyone to a certain degree has some level of wanting to control their life, control their surroundings, control other people, control what happens around them. But the moment that you realize that you cannot control anything but yourself and your actions and reactions, you will be so much more at peace with the world. It's like that person did something mean to you, you can't control them. All you can control is how you react. And if you're values-based living, you react with love, compassion, empathy, because they might have been going through something totally unrelated to you, and they're grumpy at you. You can't do anything about it. It's not your fault. It's not your problem. So it's having that, learning to have that degree of separation where control what is controllable and don't take ownership, because ironically, what I'm about to say is actually under the line thinking, below the line thinking. Don't take ownership for other people's responsibilities. I am a sucker for that. People pleasing. I believe I'm in the control of making other people happy. But no. All I can do is do my best. My responsibility is to do my best. And so as long as I feel wholeheartedly I've lived by my values and I've done my best, how they choose to react or respond or accept that is on them.
Yeah, super powerful. But really hard, eh?
So hard.
I know many situations I'm not happy unless someone else is happy.
Totally.
And it's like, oh, that's
Business,
handing some control over.
relationships,
Yeah.
family, totally. And another thing that's just popped into my head in relation to that is that it is, like, particularly in like interpersonal communication, friends, family, colleagues, but people that you tend to, people that you might be managing, people, staff members, people that you have fairly close relationship with for whatever reason. There are those moments where you have to have those tough conversations, and maybe it's pulling someone up on something, or it's maybe just saying, hey, brother, didn't appreciate how you said that. Look, it made me feel this way. Those are some really hard conversations to be had. Or on a positive sense, it might just be like, bro, you're looking awesome today. Sometimes.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks.
You're welcome. You are, actually. I love it. Something's beeping.
Oh, it'll go away.
Okay. Let me. I've lost my spot. So yes.
Talking about how amazing I looked.
Yes, we're talking about how amazing you look. Absolutely. So yes, in tough situations where you might be having a hard conversation with someone, having the courage to have that conversation, but even in a compliment, your responsibility and all you can control is putting your heart on the line and communicating your values and from your heart with total authenticity. And if that person doesn't receive that compliment, that's on them. But you've done your piece. You've done your best. Does that make sense? Do we need to reframe?
Yeah, I can sort of help you. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
A couple of things there. I think you create an opportunity for someone. You share where you're at with someone, and that's just you wholeheartedly. And those conversations you talk about, we call them heart conversations.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll come up to Charles and be like, man, I feel like I need to have a heart conversation with X and so, or such and such, or even with yourself.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of times where it's like, hey, bro, I just need to have a heart conversation. Is now a good time.
Totally.
And it's just putting forward that, creating an opportunity to connect deeper, to unpack something that's just not sitting well with you, or that you put forward to someone. And again, however they take it, that's not your responsibility or anything like that. You're just sort of putting out how you're genuinely feeling and communicating that, to give them an opportunity to understand where you're at. And if they don't agree with how they've been behaving, then they might want to take that lead as well. But it's also communicating what you need at that time.
Totally. And that can be in that hey bro, can we address the situation type thing. But again, that can be in the positive of wow, you did such an amazing job. And classic Kiwi tall poppy sort of, oh, nah. Go back and reiterate, no, bro, just wanted to communicate. You did a really amazing job. And providing the opportunity for another human being, the opportunity to connect with their own heart, and for your heart and their heart to connect. What a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think actually this heart living, this heart space, heart conversations is going to be something that's probably going to pop up in a lot of our discussions and talks, as it does at home, as it will in the podcast.
Yeah, and a lot of that heart conversation is at the core of living above the line and wanting better as well. Because if you're not communicating with courage, some things that aren't sitting well with you, then again, you're putting yourself in that same position and not moving forward.
Totally.
Look, I just want to circle back to that control
nice
aspect, and really agree with that. I feel like it's where it becomes unhealthy, the control aspects, which is like the external, outside of us, which are things we can't control. I think as humans, we're searching for certainty. So, as humans, we've got 6 needs. One of them is certainty.
Yep.
And so when we're trying to create certainty of the environment around us and how people are acting and trying to control that stuff, it's all outward facing.
Yep.
And it's just a nightmare. And that's where the stress, the anxiety is, because we're trying to get some certainty to put us at ease and controlling all the things that are outside of our control.
Crazy.
So it's just really good connection there, in terms of
powerful. Yeah. And the sooner that we can realize that and put that into action, the freedom the freedom that you'll experience. So powerful. Love it.
Before we move on from below the line, I guess I just wanted to share something that I've noticed around when I am consciously like choosing to live above the line. Something I noticed a while ago. So my personality profile.
Yep. Here we go.
It's quite like in a work setting, particularly strength finders command. So I'm pretty black and white. Like I just want, if I'm talking to someone, it's like, just give me the answer, or like, I don't need to know how you got the answer. It's like some people like to talk it out, whereas I'm like, I just need this thing so I can move forward and whatnot. So I become a bit short. Once I found that out, and conscious around how I behaved when I was perhaps maybe at a stressed or low energy state, those things naturally come out and I have less control over them.
Interesting.
What I found is when I started doing morning routines, my tolerance to stay above the line was way higher.
Interesting.
And so if you look at not above the line or below the line as a black and white, yep, I'm above, or no, it's like, how far above the line are you?
Yeah, totally.
So when I start my day, and we talked about it last time, like, I'm going to have an amazing day, that would shift me a little bit higher above the line.
It just puts you into a gear to then keep moving further above.
And so I'll go a bit higher if I go to the gym, get some endorphins going. You know, I'm even going higher above if I'm doing some journal or unpacking some thoughts in my mind. That's putting me above the line. And so when I start my day, I could be, based on how that morning's gone or where I've put myself into, like really above the line. And so as the day goes on and things happen, little niggles you know, need to deal with, and just, you know, all those things out of your control happen, they might sort of bring me a bit closer to the line, but I'm way more tolerant of them, as opposed to if I just got up, was running late, got into the shower, got out, didn't get any breakfast. Like I'm sort of probably just hovering above the line, and it doesn't take much for me to be like, whoa, I'm below the line now. This is super hard. Like, all these people are just annoying me.
Yeah, so true. I totally feel that. Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing that I just thought as well with, you know, that whole thing of like, wake up in the morning and just choose to be happy, and, I'm just going to have an excellent day. And it literally is as simple as just saying to yourself, first thing you wake up, well, it doesn't really matter when it is, but the earlier the better, because your day has started, is...
What's it look like for you?
I'm going to have literally wake up, generally go to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah. Go to
Get changed. I walk to the gym, and on my walk to the gym, I have some awesome inspirational music going on, doing self-affirmations, you know, all that kind of thing. Really, really powerful moment. Sometimes in my 8-minute walk to the gym, I'm in tears just with awe and just, what a way to start.
Man.
So
feel sorry for those weights in those gyms. That's really thrown around.
It's all go. It's all go when I get to the gym. But one of the things that just popped into my mind, which loops back on a couple of things, is that sometimes I've sensed in my mind when I'm like, I'm going to choose to be happy, I'm going to choose to have an excellent day. Sometimes there's a little self-disbelief portion that sometimes says, I don't feel I deserve to have it.
Right.
You know, which again is that self-love piece and that self-valuing. No, actually I do. I value myself. I'm going to have a great day. It's a really interesting little trigger. And if you can pick up those kinds of little hesitations, verbalize them, address them, write it down, work with it.
Interesting, man. So yeah, it's about that awareness, eh? Awareness is like such a superpower for being like a really good human being.
Totally.
But interesting, your mind goes that way in terms of, am I worthy of it? My mind's like, well, where's the evidence to suggest I'm going to have an awesome day?
True.
Like I feel like I'm worth it. Like I'm worth having a good day.
Interesting.
I haven't done anything that I shouldn't be.
But
then I'm like, but what's going to be the awesome thing? And it's like, I need to find that evidence to be like that. And so sometimes it's really obvious, like, hey, we're doing a podcast this morning. So it's like,
what a start.
Man, I can get pumped about that.
Totally.
But it's like, well, when I don't have something that's so, you know, monumental or big, it's like, ooh. Yep. But then it's like, well, you know what? I'm just going to like go get a coffee and just like enjoy that moment.
And relax in the sun for a couple of hours and staying above the line while you're relaxing there, not a quote unquote achieving anything. Wow, that is a massive win. That is success. That is freedom. That is at peace with yourself.
Yeah, and I think as well, we're starting to lean, and we won't go into it, but it's like that gratitude elements as well.
There's a whole...
Yeah, so like you were starting to err on that. But look, one thing we wrapped up last week's episode, or I don't actually know the timing, but we mentioned living a values-based life.
Yeah.
And heart living started to come in.
Yeah.
We started talking about today heart conversations.
Yeah.
Which requires courage.
Yeah.
We touched on that sort of differentiation between, as humans, we go through life and we have this thing called, or that we've categorized as work.
Totally.
And so what we've noticed is, that work piece, which is a big chunk of our days, somehow on the transition from your home life into your work life, you change as a human.
Totally. You have a different tone of voice. You have a different demeanor. You have different belief system. It's like,
and I
crazy.
think that really came out like we first met in a business context.
Yes.
You're getting up a professional business networking group.
Yeah.
I was coming in, giving you a hand with that. That was about, 12 years ago?
Yeah, totally.
And then we connected again later, and then a real friendship, brotherly love came into it.
Totally.
And then we started doing some business stuff together.
Yep.
And you sort of observed Scott outside of work and Scott inside
Business
of business. We call him Business Scott. Was like very different.
Totally. And I've had people comment to me, in some ways it's interesting without, we're quite similar in personalities, but we've got some interesting differences.
Yeah.
So I think you often go quite serious Business Scott from Personal Scott. I go sometimes quite overly enthusiastic from Personal Charles to Business Charles. So just quite interesting, the differences there. I mean, I am still a very enthusiastic person as it is, but I think with part of that want to make people happy, I think, I'll be more enthusiastic. Yeah, it's just interesting differences.
Yeah, and the interesting part is, so why we bring this up is because when we flip those personalities or who we are, we're being driven by something that we think we need to be in that context to succeed.
Hang on.
So for me, it was like in an accounting firm, financial advisor, very professional, very serious.
Yep.
That's who I thought I needed to be to do well in that space. And so what was happening, and this is where the conversation starts, it's like, well, does that mean I was actually just putting the real Scott at home when I left for work?
Yeah.
And then this other guy called Business Scott rocked up, but not true who I am.
Totally.
Just because I felt like that's what I needed to be in that setting, and then come home and
it was really interesting, as you mentioned about some of those business interactions we had. As I got to know you more, and I saw the Personal Scott, and then saw the difference with the Business Scott, is that out of that, after some time, came a heart conversation that you and I had, and we discussed that difference, and I was kind of like, bro, I love Scott, Personal Scott. Bring some of him into Business Scott. People value Personal Scott. People love Business Scott. Personal Scott. People love Personal Scott. People want Personal Scott. Personal Scott impacts people's lives with mana and love and expertise. There's no reason why you can't have that in a business context.
Yeah.
And bringing those together, how powerful.
And that it's the magic. Because again, the energy that I put into and that we put into being someone we're not is like energy getting wasted. And ultimately, people don't want that person. And if they do want that person, we probably don't want to be dealing with them.
Because then they're probably not aligning with your true values.
Man.
And your energy piece you've just spoken of there, my mind went exactly there as well. Trying to be someone that you're not, as little or extreme as that looks like, takes energy. And no wonder you get to the end of the day and you're just knackered. You're just so tired.
100%.
But imagine if you figured out which you have, I'm talking the generic you, imagine if you figured out what your values are and then just simply lived by those in every part of your life, relationships, personal, business, and you just were you because people love you for you and not putting something else on. What a powerful, freeing life that is.
100%. And so I think the question is like, are people compartmentalizing their true self to be something or in a space that they think they need to be?
I think there's two aspects to that. One, I think a lot of people don't have the self-awareness to understand who their true self is.
Yeah, awareness, superpower.
It's superpower, yeah. And then secondly, which you just touched on, which has gone out of my mind for this moment, is that we think we need to be a certain way in certain circumstances to be worthy, valued, liked, loved, to be of authoritative enough to be in a certain environment, particularly in the business case, particularly us being younger, working with, whatever that looks like, which is then ultimately just a lack in self-belief or self-value.
100.
But if you are comfortable and grounded in, I know who I am, I know the value that I provide, I know the life that I give, I'm going to be that, I'm going to give that in this scenario, whatever that looks like, that's pretty cool. But I think it's those two things that hold people back.
Yeah, so I think, we're sort of nearing the end of this episode, but one thing I've seen, particularly in business, working with owners and a new generation coming through, at that top end, those older generations, they were very hard. Work is work, life is life.
Interesting.
And they separated those buckets.
Interesting.
They made that a thing.
Big separation.
Yeah, whereas the younger generation coming through, and like we're young, but probably just a little bit younger years. Well, you're getting old, but I think that generation I admire because they are just values on their sleeve. And a lot of them they're still sort of figuring out what those values are and living them true to themselves. But they are very like staunch and like, it's not all about work. It's not all about money. Like I want to balance my life, and I have this real big passion that I stand for, and I'm not going to waver on that. And I think in the business world, there's a clash.
Totally, big
that
clash.
This older generation doesn't appreciate that the new ones coming through, they've just got different values in what they view life as.
Totally.
And it's just like sort of
how
combating.
to balance, how to mesh that.
Yeah, combating these two very sort of conflicting thoughts, and that's where I think a lot of the confusion and the miscommunication, the misunderstanding is happening. And so for an owner, I think that's just being really conscious of it and sort of bringing into that context. But I guess as a person, so much more freeing and powerful to just be you.
Absolutely. So figure out who you are.
Yeah, and who that is.
Be that person. Daily choose to be that person.
I think the biggest barrier is that we just think that we're not good enough. So we need to be something that we're not.
Totally. And it's really interesting. You look at all the different types of personalities and how different people act in personal and in business. And so often people's reactions, and let's talk, tend to be, quote unquote, negative reactions, or authoritarian reactions, or ego-driven reactions. Look how cool I am. All of that stems from a lack of self-belief and a lack of self-value. Because if you had so much value that you knew you were valuable, if you had, if you had enough self-value that you knew your own value, you would not need other people to tell you that you're valuable. So that means you wouldn't need to try act in a way that shows yourself to be valuable to get that feedback. You wouldn't need to portray yourself in that way so that you think you feel valuable. You would just be grounded and just be valuable. And then when you're living that authentic you, your heart on your sleeve, you will be valuable. Pretty awesome.
Awesome, man. And it's a work in progress.
Massive work in
progress.
It's
not a one or done. It's not a black or white. It's an ever evolving thing.
Totally.
Everything. You need to keep working on it.
Yeah.
It's never stop working.
Love it.
All right, man. That's us for another
Wow,
episode.
that went quick.
Does go quick. Just trying to wrap you up for about 5 minutes.
Appreciate you. I can waft. My apologies.
All right, signing off. Have a great day, team. Go out there and smash it.
Today I'm not Ron Burgundy. I am Charles Allen. Have a lovely day.